We're going to talk about social media and emotional overstatement. We got Father David Ross with us. He's Director of Community Engagement, of course, at LCC. And this is a great Wall Street Journal article that you shared with me. And I think it's kind of true. We're talking about we're too emotional, I think, sometimes, especially on social media, right?
Oh, yes. The emojis are just flowing like there's no tomorrow when you look at it, you know. And what's happened is Caitlin Macy wrote this beautiful article, I thought, this beautiful essay in the Wall Street Journal some time ago, in which she talks about the fact that we have become so emotional in our society, so passionate. And when she transfers it to our relationships, and she did a good job in explaining this, when she transfers this to our relationships, she understands the idea, she explains the idea that in our culture today, we are of the belief now that every relationship has to be passionate when it comes to love. You have to have the constant feeling, the constant euphoria, and in reality, it cannot be that case. Some years ago, in 1992, I believe it was, Elizabeth Fisher, who wrote a classic work entitled The Anatomy of Love. And in her book, Elizabeth Fisher, Dr. Fisher talked about the fact that when people fall in love, the brain produces a chemical called phenylethylamine, which raises the emotional level. It's a natural amphetamine that the brain produces. I believe it's in the amygdala, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a natural amphetamine that the brain produces, and it makes it very, very high. Of course, it accompanies norepinephrine and dopamine. What happens is people, when they fall in love, have this surge of this natural drug through their system, and they believe it's always supposed to be there. They find this to be the case. This natural drug flows when people jump out of airplanes and parachutes. This natural drug flows through the system, actually, when people are in divorce proceedings at the court. But it flows through the system, and it gives people a high. And we've come to have this expectation that it's always supposed to be there in our marriages, for example. And this is why you've heard of the thing called 7-year itch, haven't you?
Right, exactly, yes.
Well, some people believe that, some would say that 7-year itch comes about when people's emotion, when that emotion starts to decline. But people are of the opinion that it's always supposed to be there. And that's why oftentimes people in our culture will say, I don't have any feelings for you anymore. Therefore, the marriage must be over. Therefore, it's time to get out. When in actuality, that's the very time that their marriage should begin if it's based on values that people share in common. So Caitlin Macy talks about the fact that we've given too much emphasis to the whole idea of the emotion. Although she doesn't mention phenylethylamine, she says we've given too much emphasis to the constant feeling of emotion that we have to experience in any kind of relationship of a love nature.
Right. I mean, and we feel like we have to share it with everyone because, I mean, on social media, we're always like, oh, you know, my son is the best and I love him so much and happy birthday to him. Everybody wish him a happy birthday. And we want all these, like you said, love emojis and stuff. And we're just like, it's just too much, right? We should have less of this and not more of it.
Yeah, I think that's a byproduct of it. But again, we go back to what our culture is emphasizing, that if there's no feeling in the relationship, then it really isn't a valid or a virtuous experience that we're having. Consequently, people are saying there's something wrong with me or you if I don't have that good feeling in the relationship. And so we try to manifest it in so many ways, as you said, in emojis and these constant sentiments. Well, you know what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So. What do you recommend when you're down to that low and you're thinking things are bad? I mean, is that when you like come to like someone with you at counseling and say, no, this is like what love and marriage and that kind of thing is all about?
That's a good question. When people come to me for marriage, and I've dealt with a lot of people who've gone through divorces as well. When people come to me for marriage, we talk about the fact that this phenylethylamine is going to surge through their system. And I tell them I have to do this. I have to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. So I afflict the comfortable people as the young couples, for example, come to me for marriage. And I have to say, I can pretty well predict from all the data that we've known from sociologists and anthropologists and psychologists, we can pretty well predict that this high that you're experiencing isn't always going to be there. And so when the high goes, what keeps the marriage together? It's got to be values that people share in common, particular values about family, children, finance. I think I call it the eternal realities and sex. So when we talk about these values that people share in common, we try to explore them to see whether or not they in fact do have them in common. Because when the feeling goes, it's the values that kick in that people will say, I'm committed to you because I do share this value, and we're going to work through this despite the fact that there's not an emotion. Now, the emotion can come back, It's not, once the phenylethylamine goes, it doesn't mean it doesn't come back in the relationship, but it's not going to be there with the same intensity. We try to talk to couples about that and prepare them. Although, you know, they think that I'm from another planet when I say that sometimes, I have to tell you.
I'm sure they're just saying, yeah, Father, whatever. Just marry us, right?
Get it done. Get it done with.
Yeah, get it done with. All right. So it's just something I guess that we should be aware of, and that Wall Street Journal article kind of just brought it to light for you that, you know, this is happening and people need to be aware.
I believe so. It was a good article. It was a good article.
Yeah.
It was entitled. If you want to get on the internet, it's entitled "The Age of Emotional Overstatement" by Caitlin Macy, M-A-C-Y. It's a good article.
Yeah, it certainly was a good one. Well, Father, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing.
Thank you, Holly.
All right, don't go away. New Edition continues in a moment.
Hunter Douglas Window Blinds, Shades and Shutters, solutions that beautifully diffuse sunlight.